Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and thank you for being here. If you are new, you are welcome. Please kindly hit on the subscribe button and click on the notification bell to be the first to be notified whenever I upload a new video. So today I'm going to be teaching you the updated version of the mermaid skirt with a long tail, that's the train at the back. And I'm going to be using the slash and spread method. So if this is what you like to learn, please stay tuned to the end of the video. So to draft this pattern, you need your pattern paper, your straight ruler, your curve ruler, your paper scissors, measuring tape, and markers. And you'll be needing some measurements. You need the waist to the hip, the waist to the knee, and then the waist to the length of the skirt. That's to the hem of the skirt. And you need the waist circumference, the hip circumference, and the knee circumference. So in this case, the waist I'm using is 32 inches, the hip is 40 inches, and then the length of the skirt is 39 inches plus half inch for hemming allowance. So let's start with the drafting. So to know how much paper you put on fold, you'll be using the biggest part of your body measurement. In this case, is the hip measurement divided by 4, and then you add some inches for allowances and that. As you can see, I have drawn a line on the top, a horizontal line, which serves as our starting line and also the waist line. And then the vertical line is where all the horizontal measurement is going to start from. So from the waist to the hip is 8.5 inches. And if you want to add a band to your skirt, you make sure that you minus the band from the length. So in this case, I'm using a band of 1.5 inches. You have to place the tape on this starting line, which is the waistline, and then you take out the 1.5 inch for the band. So from the waist to the hip is 8.5 inches. Make sure that your tape is on the 1.5 inch up for the band. So from the waist to the hip is 8.5 inches, and then the waist to the knee is 18 inches. It's 20 inches, but my client wants it to be free for her to walk freely, so I minus 2 inches, so it's 18 inches. And then from the waist to the hem of the skirt is 39 inches plus half an inch for the journey, so it's 39.5. So I mark all the measurements across and then draw a straight line. So now I'm starting with the dots. Before marking the dots, let me label the lines. So this is our waist line, this is our hip line, this is our knee line, and this is the hem line. So the next thing to do to impute our measurements. So to mark the dots, you need your bust span, and your bust span divided by 2, which is also known as your nipple to nipple measurement. So in this case, it's 8 inches divided by 2 is 4 inches. So I mark 4 inches here, and I'm going to mark 4 inches also on the hip line, and I'll draw a straight line. Then on the hip line, I'll be going up by 2 inches for the dart length, and on the waistline, I'll take 1 inch for the darts, which I'm going to split half inch on each side of the dart line. And I'm going to connect with a straight line to meet the 2 inches I marked up. So the next thing to do is to divide our waist circumference by 4. The waist is 32 inches divided by 4 is 8 inches. So I'm going to mark 8 inches here for the waist measurement. That's the waist circumference. And I'm going to replace this 1 inch I took for the darts here. And then the next measurement to take is the hip divided by 4. The hip is 40 divided by 4 is 10. So I will impute 10 inches here for the hip. And then on the knee, I will minus 1.5 inch from the 10 inches. So it's 8.5 inches. So on the knee line, I will mark 8.5 inches. That's 10 inches for the hip minus 1.5 inch. You can minus 2 inches if you want. So it's 8.5 for the knee. And on the hem line, I'll mark 8.5. Whatever I have on the knee, I mark it on the hem line. So the next thing to do is to connect the lines. And to connect these points, on the hip line, I'll come down by 2 inches. You can go up to 2.5, 3 inches. but I'll come down 2 inches to give us a nice hip curve there, like so. So I'll connect from the waist to the hip, and then from the hip to the knee, and then from the knee to the hemline. Center front, then you cut it on fold, cut on fold. So on the waistline, I'll be coming down by half an inch. I'm supposed to come down 1 inch, but you need half an inch to join to the band. So I'll be coming down half an inch, or I'll come down 1 inch, rather 1 inch, and then I'll connect it with a curved line to meet the side line, like this. So if you want to add your sewing allowance on the paper, you can do so, but you can also, while cutting on your fabric, you can add your sewing allowance. But in this case, I'm adding everything here. So I'm adding 1 inch for the sewing allowance on the side, and I'm marking 1 inch all the way down to the hemline and connect with my ruler. So guys, our front panel is ready. Now on the knee line, we are going to be dividing this knee line into 2. That's cutting it for the slash and spread. So you measure what you have here and divide it by 2. So I have 8.5 inches here, so 4.2 is the center, and you go down the hemline and also mark the center of the hemline, and then I'll draw a straight line. So I'm not going to cut it now. After drafting the back panel, then I will cut the slash and spread for the mermaid skirt down part. Okay, so this is it. Can you see that our front pattern is ready? This is the front. So next we'll be drafting the back panel. So I've laid down the back pattern. So I've gone ahead to mark the waistline, that's our starting line, and also the hip line, the knee line, and then the hemline. The waist to the hip is 8.5 inches, and then I minus the 1.5 inch for the band, and then from the waist to the knee line is 18 inches, and then waist to the hemline, that's the length of the skirt, is 39.5 inches, and I marked 2 inches here for the zipper allowance. So now let's go right into the measurements. So the first thing to do is to mark that, and to do that you need your bust band. As I did on the front pattern, you divide your bust band by 2, which is 4 inches. That's your nipple to nipple measurement, which is 4 inches. So I mark 4 inches here on the waistline, and then on the hip line I mark 4 inches, and I draw a straight line, and on the hip line I'll go up by 1.5 inch for the back dart. The front we went up by 2 inches, but the back 1.5 inch or 1 inch, it depends on you. And then I'm taking 1 inch for the dart on the waist, which I'm going to be dividing into 2.5 inch on both sides. So I mark, and then I'll use my straight ruler to connect it to this 1.5 inch point. So the next thing to do is to impute the waist measurements, and then the waist is 32 inches divided by 4 is 8 inches. So I'm going to place 8 inches here, and then I'll replace this 1 inch for the dart intake, like so. And then I'll come to the waistline again. Pay attention to this part. I divided the waist by 4, which is 8 inches, and then I added 1 inch for the dart intake here on the waist. So on the side, that's the center back, on the center back line, from the waistline I'll come down by 4.5 inches, and then I'll go in here 1/2 inch. Why I'm doing this, because our back is not flat, our back is a bit inside. If you don't adjust the back, the waistband will not rest well at your back. So in order for your waistband to rest well at your back, to sit well at your back, you need to go in on the waistline by 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, and then we are going to connect it to this line, this 4.5 inches. This 1/2 inch you took, you have to replace it on the waist here. So I'm going to replace the 1/2 inch also here. If you don't place it, you short of the measurement on your waist. so I place it here. So now we finish with the waist. Now on the hip line, we are going to divide the hip measurement by 4. The hip is 40, divided by 4 is 10 inches. So I'm marking 10 inches on the hip line. So on the knee line, as we did in front, we are going to minus 1.5 inch from the hip. The hip is 40 inches divided by 4 is 10 inches. So if you minus 1.5 from 10 inches, you are left with 8.5 inches. But the 8.5 inches, we are going to place 1 inch here, and then on the side, you mark half an inch. So the best thing to do, let me use my pencil to illustrate it for you to understand what I'm doing. On the knee line, I'm marking what we have on the hip line, which is 10 inches. So I'm marking it with my pencil because I'll be rubbing it later. So this is 10 inches. From this line, this horizontal line, on the center back, I mark 10 inches. And the hip is also 10 inches. So now, on this center back, you go in by 1 inch. That's what I mark. And then on this 10 inches, you come in by half inch. Why we do that? Because if you have big butts, it accommodates it well and give you nice shape at the back. If you have like normal butt, you are going to bring the half inch on this side, and then here you mark 1 inch. Hope you understand. So on the hip line, I normally come down by 2 inches as we did on the front panel. So now here we got 8.5 inches as we got on the front panel. So the next thing to do is to mark whatever you have here, 8.5 inches down the hemline. And also on the hemline, you go in 1 inch, and then you come in on the side by half an inch. So let's go 1 inch here on the side, and then 8.5 inches, which is the measurement for the knee. So the next thing to do now is to connect the dots. So I connect from the waistline to the hip line, and then from the hip line to the knee line, and from the knee line to the hemline. I'll use my straight ruler to connect it straight down. And then on the back, you come in by 0.75, and then connect it with a curved ruler like so. So next thing to do is to add the side seam allowance, which is 1 inch. I'll add 1 inch all across to the hemline and connect it with my curved ruler and my straight ruler. So what we are going to do now is to remark our zipper allowance. So I'm going to mark 1.5 inch for a zipper allowance, and I'm going to mark 1.5 inch all the way to the hemline. And you are going to start marking your 1.5 inch from this half an inch that you went inside. That makes you get a nice shape at the back of your skirt. So from this hip line, I'm going to connect the line straight to meet this line here, like so. And I'm going to connect it with a straight ruler to meet the hemline, like so. So now let me use the blue marker to mark the zipper line so that you understand it and it will be visible. You mark the 1.5 on this line, not on this line. Then you connect the point. So this is our new zipper line. Hope everything is clear to you. So the next thing to do now is to find the midpoint of our knee line. The center line is 4.2. And I'm going to divide the hemline to, not on the allowance line, on this main line. You measure and then find the midpoint and do the same to the hemline. And then you roll a straight line in the middle. So this is our back panel, it's ready. This is our zipper line. And then you can take from this waistline, you can mark 8 inches for the zipper line. But before marking the 8 inches, you minus your band height, which is 1.5 inches from the hip line. So now we got 8 inches. This is where the zip will be. And then this is the down part, this is the up part. So our back panel is ready. what I'm going to do now is to cut it out. I will extend this line to meet the zipper line like so. Can you see that? So after cutting it, before I'll slash open this center on the front panel and on the back panel. So let me cut it out and then cut the front one too. So let me cut out the front panel. So this is our mermaid skirt pattern. This is the front panel and this is the back panel. So we are going to be slashing through the down parts, and then we are going to get a new pattern paper, a fresh pattern paper to spread it on it. So we are starting with the front panel. So let me take off this. So I've laid down a fresh pattern paper and I'm going to slash the down part like so. After slashing it, I'm going to cut it to meet the end here, but don't cut it out, just to give room to spread it well. So this is the front panel, and you see I folded it into two. I'm going to place this front pattern on it like this because it's unfold. I place the center part on the folded part, as you can see, and I'm going to tape it down. For the front pattern, you only slash the side, not on this center part. And then I'll hold it with my masking tape. So I think this volume is okay. So I'll tape all down. So what you are going to do is whatever you have here. I have 22. So you are going to connect like that from here all the way to the front. So I'm using this pencil before I use marker to taking it for you guys to see. And also you add the sewing allowance here. You add about 1 inch. So you connect it from here like so. Next you connect from here. So this is it. This is our front panel after spreading it down. So this is how it looks. So I'm going to use my marker to deepen the line for you to see. Don't forget I added 1 inch for the hemming allowance. On this side, there's no need for adding 1 inch sewing allowance because this side is supposed to be a bit inside, about 1 or 2 inches curved on the side. 2 inches curved on the side. So there's no need to add sewing allowance there. That's why I added it in front. So this is it. Here should not be pointed. You see this side should not be pointed. So let me cut this out and then we take another fresh pattern paper and spread the back panel and then cut it out. This is our front mermaid skirt using the slash and spread method. This is how we look. It's very nice. So we move to the back panel. So this is our back panel. As you can see, you place it in the middle and then I'm slashing it, and then on the knee line you slash it to the end like so, but don't cut it out. And then to the zipper line you also slash it to the end of the zipper line so that it can spread perfectly. The front panel, we didn't slash the center front because it's going to be unfold, but for the back panel we slash both the center front and the side because we are going to spread it and we are going to cut it in pieces. You are going to cut it into 2 pieces. You cut 2 pieces of the back and then the front is 1 piece. So you slash it to the volume you want. What I'll do now is to fellow tape the main body down because this side is going to need a chain. So what I'll do is I'll just cut 1 piece, but when you are going to cut it on fabric, you cut it 2 pieces. So that you can see how much volume I spread out the pattern. So you can see this is the side, this is the center back. But before doing that, I took the front pattern. You see the front pattern, you place it on the knee line like so, so that you make sure that it's equal. it's equal, so that when sewing it, it will not give you problem. So I went ahead and pinned it down. So this is the center back. So what I'm going to do, you determine how long you want your tail to be. But in this case, I'm going to make this tail longer. I'm going to use pencil. After, I'll use the marker to darken it for you to see the line. So on this nail line, I'm going to connect the line. I'm going to connect it straight to the down side. So see what I'm doing. See what I'm doing. I'm going to connect the line like this. You can extend it as much as you want. So I'll take it all the way down. It's like prom dresses, engagement dresses. So as you can see how I extended it. I extended it from the hem of the skirt. I extended it about 20 inches. That's for a long tail at the back. 20 inches. So I'm at 20 inches here. So now on the side of the skirt, we are going to connect the line with a curve to come and meet this tail line. You don't add any allowance on this curve. And getting to the tail, you round the tail, the edge like this. It's not to be pointed. Let me now use my marker to deepen the line for you to see exactly what I'm doing. So this is how our back pattern look like. You see, and you see how the tail is. You see how long the tail is. This is the length of the skirt, one folded. This is the main length, and then you can see how long the train is at the back. You see how long the train is at the back. So our back panel is ready. You see the back and the front panel, how it looks. If you don't want the tail very long like this, you can shorten it up to this level like this. You can shorten it. So this is how our front and our back mermaid skirt pattern look like. So guys, if you find this tutorial on how to draft a mermaid pattern using the slash and spread methods useful, don't forget to give it a huge thumbs up and leave comment down the comment section below, and see you in my next video. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.